Hi, my name's Ruby Rosario, and for my final project, I chose to talk about cultural assimilation. For my introduction, I just gave an overview of what is my topic and what is my argument. So, Native Americans have always have culturally assimilated for hundreds of years, and this has been an issue. Many people have tried to change Native Americans and have tried to make them fit into their own culture and religion, such as missionaries going towards the Native American reservations and tribes and trying to enforce Christianity and stuff like that. Um, Explorers, missionaries, and the American government had plans to change Native Americans to fit in and become part of the people and force them to change their ways of life. Many people thought that natives needed to assimilate to become civilized. So, what is cultural assimilation? Cultural assimilation is when a majority group enforces their values, their culture, their religion onto a minority group, such as the migrants that came from Europe tried to enforce Christianity and um, onto the Native Americans and how the American government tried to enforce their education reforms onto the Native Americans as well. So why is it so important to assimilate the natives into American culture? So all throughout the 18th, 19th, and 20th century, the main achievement for many of the white Americans was to assimilate the natives into American culture and Christianity as well. So the government tried to change the natives to be similar to the average white American. However, because of these differences in language, skin color, and religion, they were separated and segregated from civilization and put into reservations. So basically, the big migration, um, many of them went up north, uh, work like Central North America, and this is a site, the insect citation from one of the articles. It said the government now realized that by keeping Indian students separate from us and on reservations, removing any material chances to learn our ways, the acquirement of our qualities was a very low operation. Purpose in establishing a school so far east was to bring them near Washington, where all the people could see the improvement and where members of Congress and administrative officials of government could visit witnesses of their progress and ability to learn. So basically, this was the government trying to keep an eye on how well the native children were able to assimilate to the American culture. Okay, how were the natives that assimilated to Christianity treated? So there were some natives that assimilated well to the Christian religion, and a lot of some people were fine with that. So for this, in some places, natives were treated as if they belonged, and some compared their Christian sermons to be Latin compared to the natives. So basically, now the natives had their own sermons, and they saying they're saying that those sermons were a lot more rich, richness. They had not a good amount of richness in it. So, in fact, an emerging consensus among scholars suggested that Indianized form of Christianity may have promoted cultural stability as native families struggled to find a safe haven behind the frontier. However, this does not go around everywhere in the country. Many still consider these natives to believe they were barbaric and uncivilized no matter what. This is not normal. It's not normal for natives to be treated well for being They were still seen as savages. They were still seen as barbaric, uncivilized. Why did missionaries believe that they were saving the natives in their own religion? The missionaries believed that they were saving the natives in their own religion and believed that to be civilized, that they needed to become Christian. Being Christian was the only way to become part of being an American, or part of the New World civilization. So there's another interpretation. Christianity and civilization go hand in hand, and that's what the reform was throughout the starting of the New World and the starting of the United States of America. Why would missionaries believe that forcing religion to the native children to be a good idea? So everybody believes, you start from the bottom and you work your way up. So you start, why not start at the children and then you work your way up to the adults? So the missionaries believe that forcing religion to the children in school would be a great way for the natives to assimilate to the religion of the New World. Here's another intact citation. It was a principle agreed to by both Protestants and Catholics that instruction in Christianity was fundamental in the education of Indians' needs. To fit Indians for civilization in a Christian nation, which all considered the United States to be, it was imperative that religious training preceded or parallel the industrial and literally learning that was intended to prepare the pupils of the tribes for full participation in white American society. So there you go. So highlighted it. So work your way from children and work your way up to adults. And you see that you're helping the children, you're helping them educate something, helping them learn something new, even though it's not something that is agreeing with the native culture and religion. It was just something positive for the parents. Why would the U.S. government think that they were helping the natives by forcing them to abide by the school curriculum? So this is part of the whole, just the whole in part in general, that once a certain, depending on the time, there was no child left behind, there were other implements in place. So the government wanted to control the Native American curriculum in order to enforce, in order to make sure that they are properly being educated in the materials that the government wants them to learn about. So they believe that that's how they were able to control them. So white men who believed that they had the power to help those who they saw fit ran the United States government, which is true during the beginning. It's not true now, but still. Helping the natives is part of them showing that the uncivilized Indians can be part of civilization and become law-abiding, tax-paying Christians. Here's another interpretation. The miracle of Fort Warren showed that the most rambunctious and dangerous of the savages could be purposely shaped into civilized humans. Breaking down the walls of outward appearances and language enabled the personalities of inmates to become visible to their captors and residents of St. Augustine, and eventually the country at large. So basically, the government had conducted this type of experiment where they took the rebellious um, Native American men and took them down to Florida, and they set up a prison there for them. And through there, that's when they started to reform and they started to enforce religion and academics to the natives. And this is where, from there, that's where it branched out. Um, Native Americans getting help from the United States government in education. Why, after the report by Governor Kennedy put a stop to the school curriculum for natives. So they already had a curriculum that was enforced by the U.S. government. But normal school, normal public school. So in the early 20th century, the United States government conducted a research based on the Native Americans' education and saw many faults. They decided that the best thing to do was create schools and programs that would benefit the Native children. However, Governor Robert Kennedy conducted a research and found out that these influences and controls over the schools were hindering Native children. The Kennedy Report of 1969, a national survey of Indian education in the United States, described the education of Indian children by the BIA and public schools as a national tragedy and found fault with virtually every aspect of Native American educational experience, including teaching practices, curriculum, funding, Indian control over Indian education, limited sponsorship of bilingual education, and the continued use of boarding schools. In response to such criticism from 1972 to 1975, Congress signed into law three major bills influencing Indian education: the Indian Education Act of 1972, a law creating the American Indian Policy Review Commission in 1975, and the Indian Self-Determination Education Assistance Act of 1975. These bills were Margaret Sanger right milestones for Indian people. They meant that the web government control had been loosened. Henceforth, direction and leadership in Indian education would come from the Indians themselves. So, from my conclusion, Native Americans have been forced to assimilate and have not had a chance to be considered as a culture to be left alone. Only the natives understand what has to be done and what to do in terms of their people, culture, and lives. Here is my bibliography, and that is that. Thank you so much.